Today on the Girlfriend Doctor Show, I have a hot topic that comes via high demand and a guest that I've had on my show a couple of times. And we are talking hormones. I want you to understand, and in this conversation, we'll help you understand what is compounding hormones, and the different types of formulations that that you have available with a knowledgeable provider, and types of forms of compounding options that you have, and why one over the other, or when would it be advisable to go to a compounding prescription. So we're going to talk about that when it comes to bioidentical hormones. And we hit on topics of what is the fountain of youth. We want the fountain of youth. So what are some ways we can do it without overdoing it? And where is some mainstream direction going wrong? And so we talk about that during this. And also the 10 million women study that was published in July, looking at women post-menopause on hormones. So we have a really good in-depth discussion about that study, as well as we touch on some testing options and what is important to look for, how to know you're being optimized, and of course, the key foundational lifestyle and nutrition aspects that we recommend for you to optimize your health and longevity. So there was a study published recently that looked at the average age of life expectancy for women is 80 to 82 years. However, 20% of it is spent in a disease state. So we don't want that, right? We're working to optimize our health and quality of life and give you the longevities and pearls of the fountain of youth that work with you, not against you. So you will enjoy this show. And then again, Dr. Sahar Swidan, she is a longtime friend and expert in the hormonal space. She is a PhD pharmacist and a academician. She has been on faculty of George Washington University School of Medicine. She has been the professor of pharmacy at Wayne State University. I think she went to medical school at age 16. You guys, she is powerful, knowledgeable, and she has a really great clinical perspective, as well as she knows the research and the science and the pharmacy inside and out. So I know you'll love her and love this conversation. Here we go. Let me introduce you to Sahar. Welcome, Sahar, to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. Welcome back, I should say.
Yes. Thank you for having me as always.
You are welcome. Hormones are always a hot topic for my audience. We always want to know more and have lots of questions that come in, specifically around compounding formulas. It is still not mainstream. You think we've been doing it for over, 25, 30 years? But compounding is still not mainstream, and there is this hype and concern about compounding and compounding pharmacies. So I want you to address this. I routinely individualize and compound hormones specifically for patients as needed. And so I wanted to talk with you about that. Why was there such controversy about it?
I think, compounding has been around forever, right? I mean, really, that was the original art of pharmacy, as I called it. In the old days, before obviously drugs were commercialized, you went to the pharmacy with the prescription, and it was all made from scratch, if you will, together for you and assembled and compounded. And you ended up with your capsule or gel or cream or whatever was
Or
prescribed.
liquid. I remember going and getting penicillin, and I could choose the flavor I wanted.
Exactly. So liquids, so the art of compounding and really compounding as a branch of pharmacy and pharmacy care has been around for over 100 years plus. So it's nothing new. At times, they tried to get rid of compounding, if you will, from the pharmacy arena, but nobody could ever succeed because really, in times of crisis, when there's drug shortages, when there's IV shortages, when all these things that have been hitting, mainstream medicine, if you will, the compounders really rallied in and saved the day, if you will, right? And we were able to, compound X, Y, or Z shortages to continue to obviously, take care of patients and provide the best care possible. I think what's been maybe controversial and why I think it's making some big splashes, honestly, almost, I think the last number, I didn't check lately, but the latest numbers was 50% of hormones were compounded prescriptions. And I think that was why it was brought to light. And I don't want to say controversy, but I think obviously it's a huge chunk of the market that's being delivered for inpatient care with compounded prescriptions for hormone replacement therapy. And so I think, I always tease, follow the money and then we'll see what's going on, right? So, compounding is an essential service that pharmacies provide. It is needed definitely at times when you really want to individualize, especially in personalized medicine. And now, even mainstream medicine is moving to personalized and precision medicine, right? So at times, you always want to, compounders by law, we can't compound and make something that's commercially available and the patient is able to get that care from the commercially available drug or hormone or what have you. Where compounding comes in is really when you want to individualize and personalize that prescription to meet some unique patient needs. For example, if a drug is available on the market and it's only, let's say, has red dye number 5, number whatever, and the patient is allergic to that red dye, obviously that patient can't have that. So, there you go, compounders to the rescue, right? They come in and we can make it to them free of dye, free of magnesium stearate. Sometimes they use these binders and fillers in capsules or tableting technology that patients could be allergic to these certain ingredients. So the compounders can compound it without those ingredients. Same thing sometimes for hormones, like even an estradiol patch. Sometimes the patient is allergic to the adhesive that's in the patches commercially, or we do have bioidentical estradiol creams and gels on the market that are FDA approved. And these are perfectly fine to use because they are bioidentical, just like the patches. But if the patient, again, is allergic to one of these ingredients in those, products, you really, again, the compounders can make it without those ingredients.
And I think there's a couple key points here is that, the adhesives, the other available options sometimes have hormone disruptors in them. I think of estrogel for, specifically, or Premarin vaginal cream. I mean, there are ingredients or components in those that can actually have adverse effects to the lining and cause sensitization of the vaginal mucosa, for instance. And we want to avoid some of those toxins. And another big one is, like, for example, prometrium. I love prometrium, but it has peanut oil. And many people were reducing that exposure. Usually it's okay, but for many clients, especially that have hyper or environmental toxicity or hypersensitivity or mold issues, that's not a good option. We want to do it without the peanut oil. So in certain cases, also the delivery, like we have good pharmaceutical, like the patches get well absorbed. I mean, that micronized estradiol, that is well absorbed with those patches. And for some people, it's we need higher doses in the creams to get that level of absorption.
Yes. So absolutely, so the art of compounding has to be sustained, if you will, to deliver those needs and exactly for those, Now there's definitely laws and regulations that all compounders have to govern. And actually we're probably, governed even more strictly than your local pharmacies, just because we have to meet additional requirements. The pharmacies have to meet USP guidance 795 for non-sterile compounding, 797 for sterile compounding, and now USP 800, which deals with kind of hazardous substances and compounding and things like that. So really compounding pharmacies have to meet with a lot of regulatory, oversight, if you will, and also guidance that they have to meet in addition to being a licensed pharmacy, like your typical corner, if you will, drugstore, for that. So there's a lot of, guidance. There's a lot of oversight. We always recommend that you get to know I teach this a lot, Anna, as even in our fellowships at the A4M and such, where your compounding pharmacist, the pharmacy can make or break your practice,
Mm-hmm.
really,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to make sure it is truly an art. It is extra training, is a lot of regulatory oversight that they have to meet and things. So always get to know your compounding pharmacy as the provider and as the patient. Make sure they're following the rule of the law, if you will. Make sure they're using the best technologies and ingredients, clean ingredients, to your point, like you mentioned. We're doing in longevity medicine and functional medicine, everybody calls it something different, but obviously everybody wants that fountain of youth, right? They want to be healthy for as long as possible. And really what you slap on your skin and what you ingest, whether it's food, health and beauty aids daily, the hormones that we're giving you as a messenger to every cellular function in your body, it's critical that what you're putting in your body, the vehicle, whether it's a cream, a gel, an oil, a capsule, what's in these capsules that you're ingesting daily? Even your medications, right? What are you ingesting on a daily basis that could be endocrine disruptors or some toxins that we're trying to eliminate, obviously, and minimize? Sometimes you can't get away from it, but our goal is to always minimize. So some really great questions for you as the patient and as the provider to your compounding. Ask them, are they PCAP accredited? So PCAP accreditation, if you will, it's kind of like the Joint Commission accreditation for hospitals and doctor offices. So that just means that they've met the next, tick mark. Somebody came in, a third party came in and inspected all their processes, how they make things, the ingredients they source to make sure they're clean. Ask them, how clean are these ingredients? Ask for a list of the ingredients that they use for their cream and gels, and you can research them. You can go on EWG, for example, environmentalworkgroup.org, and you can search each ingredient. And I really like to use 0 to 4 mark, EWG score maximum, because the lower the number, the cleaner that it is, right, and not toxic. So, ask them if something is maybe a little bit yuckier, if you will. Ask them, hey, is there any cleaner options and bases? And absolutely there are. There's definitely some cleaner bases in the industry. Capsules, I hate dyes in capsules. A lot of compounders use dyes to make sure the powder is mixed thoroughly. But I always say use good dyes. You can use CoQ10, which has this orange color. You can use charcoal, which is blackish. You can use B12, which is pinkish. Use stuff that's good for you that will give you the coloring that you need to make sure, yes, your stuff is mixed thoroughly and evenly and all that good stuff. So there's definitely ways, if you use like oil capsules, some people like oil capsules or emulsions or whatever, you can get like a good organic olive oil, and you can use that as the oil, organic avocado oils and things like that. So really the compounders have some leeway and ways to work with the providers and patients to really choose as clean of an ingredient as possible in their compounding to make sure, again, we're achieving the goal of giving you the least toxic substance and hormone replacement and giving you the good physiological functions that these things should be delivering to you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's kind of like the art of compounding. And I want to, talk about the varieties of ways that we can use hormones, that we can, as prescribers and what's available through compounding pharmacy, to know that it's not one size fits all. So that we have different options. We have pellets, testosterone pellets. I don't hardly ever, rarely, if ever, use estrogen pellets, but testosterone pellets, troches. So we can talk about that, and rapid dissolve tablets. So those are oral. And we have capsules, of course, oral capsules to swallow. And we have creams and we have vaginal applications. So did I miss any?
Yeah. I always tease as a compounding pharmacist, just give us a body orifice and we'll find something to stick into it, right?
That's right.
Come up with unique dosage forms. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are the big ones. And that's the beauty of compounding. Again, sometimes for hospice patients, for example, end of life, they're not able to swallow. Sometimes there's a lot of GI issues, and that's where their compoundings can really shine and come up with solutions to kind of these medical problems like you're showing. But for hormones, absolutely. And that's where, again, you can personalize. Now, we definitely have some commercially available products, like we said. And if it's something commercially available, the compounding pharmacies can't copy it, right? It's by the FDA, it's called an essential copy of an FDA approved drugs. But if there is a unique need where a cream needs to be modified and made differently without certain ingredients that the patient is allergic to, or vaginal areas, as you know, sometimes some of these bases are very sensitizing. And so sometimes, the compounders can really make it in much cleaner, if you will, bases, or at least hypoallergenic, even just coconut oil and like coconut based, suppositories, vaginal suppositories and things that can be really helpful. But absolutely, the big dosage form, especially for hormones, um, creams or gels, and there's a little bit of variety why a cream and why a gel. In general, gels are better absorbed because usually we make them with a little bit something, let's call it more irritating to the skin, and actually can drive things through the skin a little bit better. Sometimes if we really need to drive either hormones or something else deeper, there's definitely some carrying agents, if you will, that pharmacies can add to really increase the penetration of certain things that we need more for systemic levels versus topical. Like if I have just like my knee hurts, I don't need to drive it really deep, right? I can just put that pain gel, let's call it, like a non-steroidal, like an ibuprofen-ish type compounded, and I just need it to be local, right? I don't need to drive it. But if I have something like a medication to lower blood pressure and the patient can't swallow, sometimes we have these tricks where we can really drive things for systemic. So even in gels and creams, we have variability in the really unique delivery methods that we can also provide. Then, like you said, we have troches or like buccal capsules, so troches are obviously things kind of like you can suck on. They're a little bit hard candies, or we can make them into gummies, like, gummy bears, if you will. Basically you can make a gummy formulation, or what we call buccal tablets. What's really cool, again, if you really want to get very creative, you can get a buccal tablet where you put it between basically by your cheek, but it can be like in a bioadhesive base. So actually this can stick to the mucosa a bit longer and sometimes can drive levels better that way. And when we absorb them either like sublingually or buccal, it kind of goes into the lymph system and we bypass some of the liver metabolism, but not all always. And, capsules, you can make oil capsules. You can make just a regular capsule. You can make a longer lasting capsule, if you will.
Sustained release.
Sustained release more. We can't call it that because it's mnemonic, nomenclature. That's why we call it longer lasting or E4M, because by USP guidance, it has to be 40% of this filler to make it longer lasting. So I'm trying to stay technically correct, if you will, for the industry, the correct lingo for the industry. The other thing is, pellets, and pellets is a great way to deliver some things. But the thing with pellets, I always say you never want a pellet person at the first hello, right?
Right.
Because it's stuck for 3 months and you can't get it out. So you always, before you stick hormone pellets in, you really want to know what's the correct dose for that patient. How is their body metabolizing this? Any issues with it? But once it's the right candidate for a testosterone pellet, for example, they're great because it's a great delivery method. You stick it in the right person without the issues, and you don't have to worry about it for 3 to 4 months, right? It's kind of like delivers a little bit of the hormones every day. And it's very physiological because that's kind of how our body works, right? It kind of
We tend to see really high levels, like, for example, the repetitive testosterone pellets. And then again, I think there's a therapeutic window, but long term, do you want to like every 3 to 4 months or every 4 to 6 months, even for years? I mean, it feels like it's also higher dosage. So you get that negative biofeedback on your system. Like we see it in men, right? We see their testicles shrink. So what are we doing to the ovaries with these high super physiologic doses? And if someone's like, okay, I've got to stop, I go into deep depression and mood disorder and all those other things. So there's a therapeutic window for that too. And that is, again, the relationship with your provider. versus, like, for example, a pellet mill, and you're not getting personalized, individualized care, and your levels are persistently, say, for example, testosterone levels. And I see this above 400, then clients coming into me with side effects from their pellet therapy that they've been in the, so-called mill, and no one's ever looked at what their body's doing with that testosterone also. And the detoxification pathway, something we've talked about on my podcast before, is the importance of, what comes in must go out at the healthiest route possible. So that absorption. So I think there is that therapeutic, the relationship you need with a provider that understands that we need to look at these pathways. We need to look at these hormone detox pathways. We need to look at your liver detox pathways. We need to look at why your testosterone's low to begin with, or other hormones are low. Is it just, is it high stress, but you've got good ovarian function? So we need to improve. We need to improve I would say oxytocin optimization is better than stress management. So we have to focus on what serves us and less on what doesn't. But yet during this time, we may need some crutches. And usually starting again with the nutrition, lifestyle, adaptogens, detox pathways, gut, improving gut health. And you've found this too, Sahar, but sometimes when I have a client who's not absorbing a topical hormone cream well, it's because they have gut dysbiosis issues. What have you found related to that when the people are getting creams and they have to keep going up and up and on their doses? I had a client the other day, she was on a biased 50-50. She came to me and she was on 6 milligrams of estrogen, a bias daily. And I thought, well, that's a lot because you consider we do 75 micrograms maybe on average in a patch. So
Yeah.
that's 6,000 micrograms.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you hit a lot of, points, and I wasn't sure if we wanted to dive into the clinical end of things because, honestly, what's happening with the pellets out there, or the pellet mills, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's crazy how high they're driving these levels of testosterone in women and men. I mean, the optimal range really for men is like 500 to 700, and they're driving to 1,500, 1,800, 2,000. Women, 400 and above. And really, ideally for men, we're driving 5 to 7. So,
For women, optimal range is like 40 to 100 or 60 to
exactly.
100.
Yeah. So, so that's just, I mean, we don't need to do that.
No, and physiology affects behavior. So then we get
Exactly.
aggression, novelty-seeking behavior, affairs, et cetera, et cetera.
In the study that just came out from the NIH, it was the 10 million women study,
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to bring that up with you. The 10 million women. Let's talk about that 10 million women study.
Yeah. But kind of in point to this, in the 10 million women study, what they really showed is people that had the best benefit with the least amount of side effects was in the low and medium doses of estradiol, and it was in transdermal delivery or vaginal and not oral. No surprise there, right? I mean, I always, when I teach, if you learn nothing from me today, just please don't use oral hormone. Well, oral estrogens, at least, let me clarify that. But what they showed, definitely that physiological doses, and people always accuse me of teaching pixie dust doses of hormones. But again, what we're trying to do is mimic physiology. We're not trying to make people, fertile myrtles at 70 as ITs, right? So there is no need, in these huge study of 10 million women really showed us that physiological levels work. That's what confers the protection. We're just trying to mimic what the body does. We don't need, when you use these super physiologic, crazy high doses, you are changing homeostasis. You are changing the end product, if you will, and
the HPA axis.
Exactly. And dysregulating a very organized and succinct system with lots of levers and pulleys to really keep that system balanced, and from head to toe. I always say from hypothalamus to anus, if you will. And that's where you start, even before slapping hormones. You never want to slap hormones until you start from top to bottom, meaning let's work on stress reduction in the HPA axis and the oxytocin fun. Let's fix your thyroid. Let's fix the HPA axis and your stress response. Let's make sure your metabolism and gut is healthy because hormones undergo intrahepatic recirculation. So if your gut is not healthy, you're going to keep recirculating these metabolites and it's going to build up on you and you're going to feel horrible, actually. That's when women come in and go, or men, and go, I thought you're supposed to be helping and this feels horrible. That's
Right.
probably what's going on. Or their liver is clogged, right? They can't metabolize these and keep them into the clean aisles 2, 4, and 6, as I call it. These things are very important, critical things for benefit. But if you put them in the wrong body, they're not your friend, they're your enemy, the hormones. And that's why it's critical to get the body ready for hormones before we
Right.
put it on. And it has to be in physiological doses. What I always tease, I go back to God's textbook of medical physiology and emulate that. God's textbook of medical physiology, including Guyton's and Spearoff and all of them, did not say use 3,000 milligrams of testosterone in women. Like it just did not. The average female secretes 200 micrograms a day of testosterone. So there's no need to give women 10 milligrams of testosterone per day. That's just not physiologic.
Yeah, so one of the things I want to explain the 10 million women study. So this was published in July, I think, of 2024, and it was a post publication. Early data was published in April, then refined data, let's say, was published in July, and looking at women on Medicare. So it was an analysis, a data bank analysis of women on Medicare. So that's the average age of 65, right? They're 65 and older. So that should resonate a big relief for so many women that are being told they need to stop their hormones because they're 60, 65, or they're out of their therapeutic window. We know that's just bullshit, to be honest. So then we have this 10 million woman study that looked at this. And then they further stratify the data into transdermal versus oral, with and without progesterone versus progestins. To a degree, you have to piece out that data, but I looked at it very, very closely. And without a doubt, women did better. Women
Yep.
did better, higher quality of life, lower cancer risk, lower morbidity and mortality, all disease mortality. That's what I got from it, Sahar.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as so the Keeps trial and some other trials, kind of said we have this 10-year magical window, right? Start hormones as early as possible. And then at the 10-year mark, everybody in medicine was like, great, what do we do now after they hit the 10-year mark? We know there was benefit if we started it early on. And this study came on, and I think it will revolutionize the care of really women's health and hormone replacement therapy because exactly now we have data to show probably we don't need to stop. And again, you can't just generalize to every person. That's why personalized medicine is so critical one on one. But what we know now is, again, these were Medicare women, like you said, 65 years, but some of them were up to 90 years of age. So they've been on hormones forever, 30, 40 years. And exactly what the show is, we continue to see the benefit. But the biggest concern was cardiovascular disease, right? That's why a lot of times that 10-year mark was, ooh, after you hit that magical 6 years, the risk of heart disease increases. So probably we think maybe hormones may contribute to that and we don't have the beneficial effect of
But
hormones.
wasn't that looking at oral estrogens?
Yeah, well, exactly. And it was just, but as you know, Anna, and again, I don't know how deep we want to dive into the weeds per se, but exactly, they mix up all these dosage
Got it,
forms
right.
matter, progestins versus progestogens versus progesterone matters. The delivery and the dose matters of estrogens and testosterone. So a lot of times
And
these
the
are
detoxification pathway. So I look at urinary hormone
yeah.
metabolites on
Well, a lot
routine.
of times they don't, clarify these, let's call it for lack of a better term. But I think now beyond somewhat of a doubt, let's call it, somebody will always prove you wrong. We know start hormones as early as possible in the perimenopause to menopausal stage,
Well,
um,
wait. Let's clarify that
yeah.
because I see clients that, have been on, hormones since their 40s, but like on daily hormones, suppressive hormone levels. So they've now suppressed their ovarian production of hormones, and that's a mistake. Too early is a mistake.
Yeah.
And if we look at that, because first we want to take the approach of regenerating our body's natural production and use of those hormones. So, how do we improve receptor site? How do we improve adrenal hormones? How do we resuscitate the ovaries? For me, the practice is that I need to work with that first. And often then, again, and then the daily progesterone from early 40s, I mean, you're suppressing your ovarian function and ovulation potentially. So you
1,000%.
have to cycle that. So there's so many mistakes with that, estrogen window concept, and that can actually, in the long run, do more harm than good. So it's got to be, again, Mother Nature always wins. So what can we use through Mother Nature, lifestyle, nutrition, adaptogens, et cetera, and gut support and hormone receptor like iodine receptor, vitamin D. No hormones will work without iodine and vitamin D. So where are we at on those things? And I think that's the mistake. This, popular opinion will start early. People are thinking, I've seen people in their 30s put on, you know, you know,
Yeah. No.
ridiculous. And their harm is being done.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think always you want to work with all these things that we talked. And that's why I always say, even
Head
slapping
to toe.
hormones in, I know I always do that, even slapping hormones in somebody that needs hormones, you always start top to bottom. You want to work nutrition, gut rehab, hypothalamic, calm, oxytocin, HPA axis. Because sometimes really the ovaries can kickstart, the testes can kickstart a lot of times when we remove the toxins, fill the gut. Immune dysregulation is huge. That's why a lot of times we look at kind of neuroendocrine immune, I call it, right? That loop. But add to that liverology and kidneyology, right? Because those are your detox pathways. So very important to get these systems optimized. See if you can get Mother Nature to redo itself. We have kicked back testes and ovaries again in overtime and made babies when everybody said you can't make babies and they can't.
That's my story, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So absolutely 1,000%. But I think in the person after you assess, you do all these things, and if they're still deficient, there is some logic for replacement for the bone protection, heart protection, brain protection.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
absolutely, you brought up like progesterone. Absolutely, in younger females, if they need it and you did everything and they have a luteal phase defect, or we're trying to get them pregnant and we haven't been able to do all the good stuff and kickstart that, you absolutely want to cycle it because we want to try to mimic Mother Nature, as long as possible. But absolutely, and then when it's needed, we have this data now that says, well, low physiological doses work. We don't need these high doses. Transdermal definitely is safer, and we see less side effects with that. Progesterone, absolutely much better than the progestins, which is kind of like a synthetic progesterone. Like, for example, unfortunately, most women hormone replacement therapy in the perimenopausal stages, it tends to be oral contraceptives still in this day and age, which
Breaks
is
my heart.
craziness.
Breaks my heart. Yep.
Craziness because of the effects we
Yeah.
know of these
Yeah.
progestins on breast tissue. Now, endometrial, they're actually slightly better than the progesterone in shedding that lining if need be. But for everything else, they're not the right format to give you back.
Oh,
You
yeah. I
need,
haven't prescribed a progestin. Yeah. I
yeah,
haven't prescribed a progestin in decades. I think so.
yeah,
We talked about, okay, you can start too early. So that's an issue.
yeah.
And is it ever too late to start safe transdermal or transvaginal hormones?
Yeah, I mean, that was always another issue, right?
Right.
Like women come in, they're 70, like, oh my God, I'm reading all this great stuff. I was in the era when the Women's Health Initiative trial came out and, you couldn't use hormones. Is it too late for me? And I mean, I think clinically, after they assess that person and look at the risk factors versus benefit, because it's really a one-to-one decision, if you will, you have to make that decision in front of that patient. Again, we know, I call it from God's textbook of medical physiology, people are healthier in general when they were younger with hormones than when they're older without hormones. So that's like the longest term study that we have, if you will, right? Two, now that we have this data to show that even the 65-year-old plus club from this 10 million trial continued to show beneficial effects, low, not huge risk tick marks that really popped up from the study. And the thing that was, I think most people were concerned about,
Wait,
where
unless they were on synthetic hormones. Right.
right, absolutely. But if they were, like low physiological, like we mentioned, progesterone, with the exception of endometrial protection, maybe a slight edge with the progestin, but again, you don't want to use it for that reason. We continue to see benefit in the 65 to whatever club. So I think now people feel more comfortable if a 70-year-old comes in and the risk versus benefit and the benefits are there, they feel comfortable starting that person on, again, lowest dose, physiological dose that's needed for the bone protection, brain protection, heart protection. And believe it or not, some people are still hot flashing even 10, 20 years into menopause. And we know the longer we keep the vasomotor symptoms going and the more severe they are, we know there's been a correlation with cardiovascular disease. So it's almost imperative that we control vasomotor symptoms in women, no matter probably what their age is, because we know there's a correlation with cardiovascular disease.
I think there's a large part of that because what we saw in, clients going through my Magic Menopause program or keto-green program, following the keto-green method, they become more insulin sensitive. And so without prescribing any hormones, their hot flashes were going away. And that's where it looked into the research and this cardiovascular connection. Those persistent hot flashes can be from insulin resistant, also estrogen deficiency, hormone deficiency, but it can be from that. So we're always looking at that together. I think like when it comes to, is it too late or people being taken off their hormones? Would I ever take someone off their bioidentical thyroid? Would I ever take someone off their insulin? I mean, it's ridiculous to think, well, we need to take you off of this, or you've aged out of a therapeutic intervention that's well studied, well proven, and and foundational. Like, so we look at that and think, I would never stop someone's thyroid. Okay, you're 60 now, let's stop your thyroid hormone. I mean, ridiculous, right? Why do we do that with hormones for women?
Right. Exactly. And even like with the testing, it's the same thing. Like we just would never take people off their thyroid or not test them for thyroid levels, right? Or insulin and sugar. And I think you brought up, a couple of good points too. We've been talking about lifestyle and stuff. And so in people that go with your keto green or, like the diet insulin sensitizer, we know all of these hormones are a symphony. So the less toxins we put into our body, the cleaner the diet, the better the fuel source when you go kind of keto green, not like just based living on white sugar, the sad American diet. All these things, why do people feel better on a keto green and, intermittent fasting and when they just eat bone broth? Because first of all, your body is repairing itself. We're not using all the enzymatic and energy stuff to digest food nonstop. You're detoxing in some ways. When you eat cleaner, you don't have that huge toxic burden. So actually the body can digest the clean stuff, but also get rid of the old toxins. Cellular fluidity becomes so much better and healthier. And that's why people they just say, even if they don't lose weight, you'll see them, they go, God, I feel less bloated. I feel just lighter. I feel less yucky. My brain fog is lifted. I'm thinking more clearly. I'm more energetic. Even forget the weight loss potential of like a keto green diet and things like that. All these cellular and physiological functions improve so tremendously when we put clean in and we start using the energy of the body for detoxing more. That's what you see, the end results, where they're feeling lighter, better, freer, think clearly, energy, and all that stuff. So it's critical again, and no matter, that's why I always say you can't just slap hormones and wish for the best. It's part of a collective program, with stress reduction, the oxytocin play, cleaner diets, clean recipes, clean water, stress reduction, girlfriend time, right?
Right.
the best form of therapy, I always tease. Um, and
And
then hormones, it's one of the pillars, right? Like, maca, what is maca? Okay, like Mighty Maca, for example, we know when the HPA axis is dysregulated, when people are in this fight or flight response nonstop, you can slap all the hormones that you want and they still don't feel better because they are in this mode like constantly, I'm going to die any minute. And that's just what their brain is telling them. So you have to use what we call adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, rhodiola, maca. And the beauty with maca, and in addition to kind of being an adaptogen, is it does really kind of reboot the testes and ovaries too. It has this additional method. So you kind of get two birds with one stone. But that's why, again, I always say start from top to bottom. And hormones should be like level 3, 4, or 5 that you replace. You got to address all these, the sugar insulin issues, the HPA axis, that stress response, the detox, the liver cleansing, the kidney cleansing, the gut cleansing, the clean diet, better sleep, community integration, and and then absolutely hormones is one of the pillars, of those.
right, right. And I think that's important. And like, for example, my 16-day keto-green 16 or keto-green 16, it's designed with medicinal menus and lifestyle shifts. So it's really a hormone detox. I probably need to rename it, but it's a 16-day hormone detox. And it is why, it is foundational. Then add in Mighty Maca, add in the additional nutrients and the protein. I think that makes a huge difference. I want to switch right now and talk about testing. And a marker that I researched over the last couple years that I was paying attention to, like as an OBGYN, we look at cycle day 3, estradiol, FSH, LH, and we, for fertility, we'll look at AMH, anti-Mullerian hormone, but FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. So we started paying attention to FSH and thinking, okay, well, if I'm therapeutically managing their, adrenals and hormones and detox pathways, I should be driving FSH down. But when it's elevated, as I dug into the research, I saw that elevated FSH is associated with osteoporosis. Elevated FSH is associated with brown fat conversion to less metabolically active white fat. And so I was like, that makes a lot of sense with that weight gain without doing anything different and the bone loss triggers. Now, the question is, we have to take not just estrogen to lower FSH. We really need to look at it multifactorial. But where do you like to see that marker post menopause?
Yeah, I mean, so we always, when we look at FSH, we're like, okay, when it starts creeping up above like 5, 7, I always say, well, they're kind of starting the dance, right? Obviously we're starting the menopausal journey, let's call it, or perimenopausal
Right, or
journey.
12 to 15 is ovarian resistance or
Exactly. So, they start. So I think sometimes also you have to take the test with how the patient feels. So I know some
right.
people really like to drive it back less than 5, right?
No, no, I like, depends.
Exactly.
Less than 40, less than
Yeah,
20. Let's see how we can get it there.
exactly.
Not too fast, not too slow, but I think
Exactly.
there's that 20 to 40 sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah. So exactly. So you'll see all kinds of schools there, right? Some of them are like, no, I'm driving it to pre-menopausal levels, like when they were 20, their FSH was 2, and that's what I'm doing. Cause I'm like, well, no, because they're not 20 anymore. So I don't think so. And I think that's probably the right range. We definitely don't want it high because of the issues that you just mentioned. And it makes sense, right? We know FSH goes in response like, hi, I'm not getting enough estrogen. I need all the protection stuff for bone and brain and heart. Like, hi, it knocks at the ovaries and goes, excuse me, make some estrogen and convert some, from the fat cells and liver cells, kind of the conversion that can occur from testosterone to estrogens. But I think, between the 20 and 40 probably is the good spot, depending on where the patient feels. Some people, yes, they might feel better at 20, and some people feel great at 25 or 40, But I think I don't believe into that driving it into these pre-menopausal levels, which sometimes people really try to drive down. So in those cases, I think they overdose people, and they don't need these high doses to achieve. They need those higher doses to achieve those reductions. especially as we age. Again, physiology changes. We're not 20-year-old ovaries. And I think sometimes when we try to make the body think it's still 20, it doesn't work well and we end up overdosing people. I always say, yeah, as you know, I've been in pain management and neurology most of my life. And I'm like, if you give me a heroin addict to detox or a hormone addict, I will choose the heroin addict any day over a hormone addict to detox because they're so much harder to detox. So, I always urge people, please don't overdose these hormones. They are physiological doses that do the benefit without the side effects that are not needed. So you always want to dose in physiological ranges. Don't drive them to these levels. Sometimes we're chasing lab tests and
Right.
not necessarily how the patient is feeling. Because we go, oh no, I want your DHEAS to be whatever, or FSH, to be whatever, and I want your TSH to be like 0.5 on the dot, and but the patient goes, but I don't feel good. Like, no, we got to, and listen to the patient, use physiological doses, make sure you do all these other things because it's really a whole system. Diet matters, adaptogenic herbs, keep them calm, centered, clean, stress reduction, sleep, keto-green them. And use hormones and physiological transdermalogical doses. Oral progesterone probably is the one that's been shown to have the endometrial protection in addition to vaginal. It's just vaginal is not your best route usually, or at least most convenient route. So definitely oral progesterone is okay to use. Testosterone really for women, the logical dose that we have is really compounded transdermal testosterone. Sometimes people will use troches or buccal, doses for that. But again, logical physiological doses. And now we have this 10 million women study that basically validates that for us also.
Yeah, no, this is such important information. When I teach on testing, I was like, what gets measured gets managed, but ultimately treat the patient, not the
Yeah,
labs.
exactly. Yeah, so
So,
true.
but it's taken 30 years, right? It's taken me 30 years to like really, medicine is an art and a science.
Yes.
And you do this so well. And one of the things that are big problems are the hormone disruptors. Like we talk about detoxing is hormone disruptors through skincare. And Sahar, you have created a beautiful skincare line that I just love. Will you talk about that? And we'll put links to it in our show notes. We'll give a link. Let's see, dranna.com/Sahar to check out these amazing, rejuvenating
Yes.
skincare line you created.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important whether it's skincare that you're using daily, makeup, cleaning supplies in the home. The average female slaps about 150 to 200 chemicals a day on her body. Men probably just as much, slightly less maybe. And the average baby now, the average fetus is born with 400 chemicals in their body. So it's really critical to be mindful of what we're surrounding all of our environment with and what we're slapping. And remember, the skin is your biggest absorptive surface, right?
Yeah.
That's where, so the water that you shower in, the shampoo and conditioner that you're using, the
Yeah.
makeup that you're using, the cleaning supplies, the skincare, the moisturizers, the cleansers. So very important because a lot of them have, health issues. They're really toxic to your body, but also endocrine disruptors, meaning they kind of mimic the hormones that your body's making, but they don't have the same physiological effect. So they really cause a lot of havoc. And now there's an explosion of the data on that, which we knew in our world, obviously, and as you know, for many moons, but now it's hitting mainstream, medicine, which is thank God for
Mhm.
that. So just, be mindful. And that's why, honestly, I created the skincare line because I just looked a lot out there and still even the supposedly clean stuff was not clean. So I always like to use, as I mentioned, AWG score ingredients of at least 0 to 2 is preferably and maximum of 4. So just always be mindful, use like there's different apps that you can download and you can just scan these ingredients at the store when you're shopping. So just be mindful of what you're putting on your skin, your hair, and your body. And that's why I really created, kind of the cleaner skincare line for that purpose, but just again, public service announcement, I always say download these apps and just scan everything that you have in your home, the food, the pantry, everything.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's a burden. We're inundated, right? In the 2010 data, research published in 2010 looking at umbilical cord blood. I mean, 2010, 15 years ago. At that point, it was like 197 chemicals. 70% of them were known, hormone disruptors, carcinogens, and that's in umbilical cord blood, a place where our babies are the safest. And just a plug to California Baby, which is for those moms or grandmoms out there, California Baby is a good cleanser. They have good cleansers and lotions that are made on their organic farm, and that's good for our kids. Otherwise, our kids don't need their natural oils and everything is good, but a good clean cleanser or balm or diaper balm, something like that. Sometimes you need that stuff. I know that's what I
Right.
load my grandbaby up with. But so you've got a eye cream, a cleanser, and a lotion.
Yeah, yeah, and a face cream and a toner. Yeah, so the rose one, I love that one. That's my favorite. It's organic rose oil, which has a lot of like skin tightening effect in addition to the emollient, skin softening effects and stuff. So a lot of the ingredients I source from Europe just because they tend to have sometimes a bit more strict and cleaner ingredients and guidance really for the ingredients. So I love European anything. So a lot of the ingredients I source from Europe for that reason.
Yeah,
Um,
I've known you've done a lot of research on that. So you guys check that out at dranna.com/Sahar, SAHAR. You will love it as much as I do. So,
yeah.
well, tell our audience, where are you speaking next? How do people follow you, catch up with you, Sahar?
Yeah, so you can just go to sahar.world. That's my website. So it's easy. Everything is there and the social media links and all that good stuff. And I know myself and Dr. Cabeca were usually gabbing at a lot of the same conferences. So uh, San Antonio next, Austin. Then I think we go to Palm Beach. And then actually for the first time ever,
I'll
check
see you in
out,
Palm Beach. I'll see
yeah,
you there. So that's the A4M longevity.
that,
Um,
yeah.
conference, and it's open to the public. You don't have to be a prescriber or practitioner, right? I think there's an arm of that this time.
So this time, well, not the Palm Beach one, but
Oh,
actually, that's what I was going to say. For the first time ever, we're doing an East Coast and a West Coast consumer educational program and show with vendors and stuff. And so that's going to be coming up in May. So definitely check out the A4M, A4M.com website, American Academy of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine. Definitely now we have the provider professional, obviously, provider arm of education. But now for the first time in May and September, we're going to have a consumer specific show, which we're really looking forward to share all this amazing wealth of knowledge that we've always been teaching to our docs and providers, that we want to teach to definitely consumers that are really vested in their health, wellness, and journeys and longevity and health span. And, I know we all want to live to be whatever, 120. Some people are shooting for 180.
Dave Asprey, yeah.
Hopefully we can, we can get there.
Well,
But
it's the quality of life, right? It's the health
exactly.
span more importantly than the lifespan. I was looking at some numbers today that said that, at average age of, life expectancy for women is around 80 to 82 years old, but 20% of that is spent in a disease state.
Yeah.
So we don't want that, right? That's why every one of you are listening, bringing you this information to support your quality of life and longevity. Dr. Sahar Swidan, cousin, I swear.
Yeah.
My love, I adore you. I adore how giving you are with information and knowledge. And I just for our audience, you ever have an opportunity to hear Dr. Sahar Swidan speak. She is a wealth of knowledge. Plus, she's hysterical. She's so funny. You will be entertained and well informed and educated and empowered. So I want to encourage our audience too. This is a lot. We covered a lot of areas in this conversation, and I know you'll have questions. So don't hesitate to email, email team@drannakabeca.com, team@drannakabeca.com, and say podcast questions. All of these come to me, and I see them all, and it goes into my formulation of my show and topics I want to make sure we answer, and I'm here for you. So don't hesitate to email. Like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube, because we're going to be doing some special stuff on YouTube coming up over this next year. So be sure you're subscribing and you get to see, and you'll be notified when content is up and ready for you. Again, thank you, Dr. Sahar. Thank you, all of you, for listening. And your feedback is appreciated. I can't emphasize that enough. I look forward to your comments and questions. So thank you for being here. Till next time on the Girlfriend Doctor Show, this is Dr. Anna Cabeca.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. Check out all the links below for more.